the right-wingers are making absolute asses out of themselves. And so I wanted to take a minute to just have a little fun, make fun of these idiots, because like they have just put on display not only how craven and disgusting they are, but also how fucking stupid they are. Kyle Kulinski and Dave Smith and Michael Knowles and some other guy who I don't recognize went on to Piers Morgan's show, and they're going to discuss the Trump regime's policy basically to invade Venezuela and possibly take Greenland. And I want to kind of cut through all of the setup here, because Piers Morgan does like a 2-minute like monologue kind of setting up the question. But the short version of it is that he understands the idea behind why it's important for the United States to do regime change in Venezuela and possibly take Greenland and do regime change in places like Iran. So he pitches this question to Kyle, and this is the response here. Check it out.
But this is what I meant when I said to Dave that I understand the argument. I may not agree with all of it, but I do understand the logic to what Trump is doing here. Do you?
No, because we don't have a right to act like this.
Can we just stop and look at this shit-eating grin on his face? What is that? Michael Knowles, is that your smile? Good Lord.
Around the world. We're supposed to be a nation among nations, not a nation above nations. And they used to at least lie to us in the past and say that this is good for the world and we're spreading freedom and democracy. Now they don't even bother to lie. Now it's naked, rank, disgusting imperialism where they say, we're going to take the oil. And the point is that we're going to take the oil. We're going to take the minerals. We're going to take the precious metals. We're doing this for our corporations. We're doing it for the Epstein class, the billionaires. And this, to piggyback on what Dave Smith said, is frankly not what many of the MAGA voters thought they were signing up for. They thought America first actually meant America first. By the way, you also replaced the Maduro regime with the Maduro regime. Congratulations on that. It's also been now a week straight of pro-regime protests. Now you have roving gangs of Venezuelan militias that are kidnapping Americans. But again, I come back to the fundamental point, which is if you sign on to stuff like this, you're saying might makes right and the law of the jungle is back. What you're saying is China has a right to go into whatever smaller country they want and depose the leader and say we're doing it because we can and we have the right to do it and we have bigger guns and there's nothing you can do to stop it. So they're never going to address that.
I love how Michael Knowles is sitting there like doing his little thing where he's like, when Kyle makes the point that's like, you're setting the precedent for China to do this to Taiwan. And he's sitting there like shaking his head like, no. And then when Kyle says the thing about might makes right and whoever has the bigger guns can do whatever they want, he goes, mm-hmm. So it's like, he just like, he doesn't even make sense when he's not talking.
A fundamental question, which is why do we have a right? Do we actually believe in international law, or was that all a joke? Are we rolling the clock back to the 1700s and the 1800s, and we're going super primitive style here? And I think the answer to that is yes, they want to go super primitive style.
International law goes back to antiquity. It's not some creation of modernity, whether we're talking about the 1700s or the 20th century.
The Geneva Conventions, the Nuremberg Tribunal, the Geneva Conventions and the Nuremberg Tribunal?
Yes, those exist, but international laws, the jus gentium, goes back to antiquity. However, unfortunately, a lot of our liberal friends think history began a few decades ago.
The League of Nations was useless. It fell apart, and that's why we had the UN. That's why we had the Geneva Convention.
Right, I'm talking about millennia ago,
because we looked
not
at
merely
piles of millions
but it's true.
of
Woodrow
dead
Wilson
bodies,
failed
and
with
we
the League
said
of
that's
Nations.
a bad idea.
What Kyle's saying is the reason that international law is important is because we used to have empires that thought it was okay to rule the world at the point of a sword and the barrel of a gun, and that's a bad thing because whoever has the biggest gun can basically do whatever the fuck they want, and that's not a good way to live. That's not a good way to like coexist with other countries. These are countries that we have to work with for, you know, resources and things like that. So this is just a ridiculous argument.
We looked at piles of millions of dead bodies and said, that's a bad idea. Let's not do that anymore. Let's actually have a framework and rules and laws. And Trump is blowing that up. By the way, he bombed fishing boats from Venezuela, Trinidad, and Tobago, and Colombia. He just did the regime change in Venezuela. He bombed Yemen and Somalia and Nigeria and Iran. He's threatening Greenland and Panama and Canada and Cuba and Mexico. And you sit there the whole time and act like it's okay. Is there anything Trump could do, Michael Knowles, that you would say, I condemn it, and you hop off the Trump train, or are you going to tickle his taint for the rest of your fucking life?
No, there have been plenty of Trump policies that I've criticized because he's only right about 99.78% of the time. So the First Step Act I thought was a misstep. But I would say the rest. Excuse me. I would say the rest of the the administration has been very successful. What's your problem? What?
Oh my god. Oh my god, that was so therapeutic, man. Yeah, what a fucking cuck. And I think that the funniest thing that he brings up is that, like, it's the one good thing that Trump may have done in his first term, where he's like, I think the First Step Act was a misstep. That was legit, like, one of the only good things that Trump did, where he pardoned, like, nonviolent drug offenders. And Michael Knowles thinks that's bad. Oh my god, dude. What? How does this guy have a show? How, like, I don't understand. What is the appeal of this? Because, like, he doesn't have any good takes. He doesn't have any independent thought. Like, this is just so fucking, like, I swear he's doing it just to be obnoxious. Like, just to troll.
My problem is that you're a cuck and you're a hack and you're not an independent thinker and you're meat riding Trump.
Why do you say
that?
know
that what he's doing in
I just answered your question.
You don't care.
Why do you say that you're meat riding Trump? Because you literally just said he's right like 99.78% of the time. I mean, nobody, like, you can like a politician and they're going to make missteps and that's fine. You know, like, nobody is perfect. But he's saying that Trump is 99.78% perfect, which is like, of course he's going to call you a meat rider. Of course he's going to call you a cuck. Of course he's going to say you don't have any kind of independent thoughts. Like, you don't.
I just answered your question. And I corrected
Congratulations. You rented your brain to a war criminal, pedophile, rapist. I hope you're happy.
A war criminal, pedophile, rapist? Do you brought up a point. You brought up international law, and you made a very...
Oh my God. Oh my God, he's pivoting. He's pivoting because he got fucking body slammed and he has nothing to say to that. I love that, dude. Kyle just going like, did I stutter? Amazing. Bravo. That was incredible. Man, I think that the panels that Piers Morgan does are generally kind of useless because he'll have on like a minimum of like 4 people. I've seen him have on like 7 or 8 people at a time. And so these like debates, I guess if you want to call them that, are sort of like they usually devolve into people just shouting over each other. But I think that it's super important to have a lefty who really, really knows their shit and knows what the fuck they're talking about to go on to Piers Morgan and just dismantle these people because they have nothing. And when he said, like, you rented your brain out to a pedophile war criminal, he's like, excuse me? Let me go back to the topic about invading Venezuela. Oh my God, dude. This is the caliber of intellectualism that we're up against on the right. And Michael Knowles has nothing but brain dead bad takes. He's arguing in favor of going in and just bombing sovereign countries that never attacked us. He's also argued that it was a good thing that Renee Good got shot by the ICE officer. Even though she was unarmed, she wasn't doing anything wrong, she was trying to get away from him. And the fact that this fucking pencil neck dweebus with his goofy smile has a show with millions of followers. I mean, like, they should not have this much control over the media ecosystem because everything that they say, all the points that they make are terrible. And so it should be so easy for Democrats to beat Republicans because Michael Knowles is right in the mainstream of the MAGA mouth breathers. Like, he does not have independent thought at all, as Kyle points out. Like, he's not thinking like, maybe, you know, like, what would be the consequences if the United States wasn't the world superpower, which at some point we may not be, you know, and we're rapidly approaching that. And the fact that we don't have people who can just dismantle this stuff, the fact that we don't have leaders on the Democratic side that can actually just go in and just take these points apart is a real indictment of the Democratic Party. And we just have to do better. We have to get better people in there because these people are so easy to beat. These people are so easy to beat into submission. They don't know what the fuck they're talking about. They're evil, but they're also dumb. And so we got to do better. Like I said, I enjoyed that. It was fun for me to watch Michael Knowles make his goofy points. And then like when, when he said that like he rented his brain out to a pedophile war criminal, he literally had nothing to say. Like I said, chef's kiss, 10 out of 10, bravo. And I think Kyle should do a lot more appearances on Piers Morgan for the very fact that we just need people like this to go on and dismantle these right-wing talking points. Anyway, guys, if you made it this far, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.